How's everyone doing so far today? Good.
Couple more joining us now, Alex. Hello, everyone who's just joining us. We're going to get started in about 1 minute.
And while we wait, if you're open to it, if you can put in the chat, like if you have any struggles with like creating a budget or spending plan, or what are you most interested in learning today, I would love to hear, and I'll make sure I can put that in the talk as I'm going along.
Yeah, great call out, Alex. So everyone, at the bottom of your screen, you should see a button that says chat, so you can enter questions in there, as Alex said. Anything else that she can help with or touch on for today when it comes to your spending plan. All right, Alex, I say we go ahead and get started. So welcome everybody. My name is Brent Giangregorio. I am from the Women's Resource Center. Thank you for joining our Financial Power Workshop today. And I want to introduce Alex Davis, who will be leading today's session. And with that, Alex, I'll turn it over to you.
Perfect. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining today. And then for those watching the replay, this has been fun. I think this is our third workshop. So I'm super excited. I feel like they've been very informative, and I've been having fun. So for those of you who've been here, welcome back. If this is your first time, welcome. This is an open forum. So as I'm going along, if you feel like coming off mute and sharing or asking questions, let me know or put them in the chat. And yeah, it's just about getting more fit with our finances. Okay, and I'm just taking some of these notes, and I'll definitely address credit card usage. I'll talk about that, and then just budgeting with children, because I've definitely been there. Okay. All right, and so today we are tackling a spending plan, crafting your spending plan. And a spending plan is very similar. It is a budget. It's basically a budget. But sometimes budget can feel really restrictive when we say the word budget. And so I don't always say that, because I just want people to feel well. I want to, do it. Sometimes budget, when it's so restrictive, you just don't want to do it. And that's never good. And so if you're going to hear this if you've been here before, but you are in the right place if you are a go-getter and you're not a quitter. So it's like things come your way, but you're going to keep going through and moving on. If you are wanting to reduce the time and some mistakes on your financial goals, you are in the right spot, or maybe you just don't know where to start. If you are ready to release the shame, confusion, or overwhelm around your finances, you're definitely in the right spot. I'm all about being compassionate with yourself. And if you are ready and willing to do what it takes to manage your finances better, absolutely in the right space. And so today you can expect about 45 to 50 minutes of informative and interactive workshop. And then I will leave 10 to 15 minutes at the end to ask your questions. So don't be shy, put them in the chat or ask them. This is a great time to get them addressed. And my personal promise is always powerful and practical information. Well, not where your money is going, but your spending plan, and then also your financial success if you show up and take action. And so a little bit about me. I am a financial empowerment coach. I'm also a CPA. I'm a certified financial planner, and I'm a licensed life insurance agent. I founded my company, AGA Tax and Consulting Services, LLC. It's a boutique tax and financial consulting firm. And I really work with entrepreneurs primarily on just building wealth through strategic tax planning and changing their relationships with money. But my passion is really supporting, especially women, in that relationship with money piece, because no offense, Brent, But girls, we run the world. And so I think when we don't have our financial house in order, sometimes like that just impacts so many people and levels we can't imagine. And so it's just become my personal mission to help more women have their finances in order, because then it just shows up. You can be confident in areas and that sometimes you don't feel comfortable in when your finances are right. I'm also a girl mom. I have two daughters. They turned 19 and 5 just this past month, well, during July. I love to travel. Going to Costa Rica in September, Cancun in December, and then I went to Colombia in May. So that was super fun. And I'm a native of Sarasota. And then the spending plan, when actually what I'll be talking about, I actually use like the method that I use, and I saved 24,000 in about a 12-month period, and which allowed me to leave my corporate job. So today, that's a little bit about me. So today we are actually going to jump into, okay, hang on. Here's a question I see here. No, thank you. Thank you so much. And I do want to say, I did not also come from money. Some people, you may know my story from last time, but I'm a single mom. I share with you, I have a 19-year-old. I basically look 19. That's what I tell myself. So I started early. No one talked about finances in my house. Never. I was bogged down in credit card debt, like over $50,000 between credit cards and student loans. And I was able to become debt free. I was able to save. So, and this is all with no knowledge. I've made probably every mistake other than bankruptcy on my journey. And so I share that to say we can all figure this out. It does require work, but you have support. You can get it done. And part of it is really having an understanding on your budget and your spending. We have to get a handle on that. But before we even get into the tactical and all that good stuff, and you should have a workbook. So if you have the workbook, make sure you download that or print it out if you can, and you can actually fill this out as you go along. But before we even get into the tactical parts of a budget, we need to know where you're going. What do you desire? And so if you can take a few minutes, if you know, and think about your financial goals. And so I like to break my financial goals down into, pick like your top 3. Because if you put too many in there, it can feel a little bit overwhelming. So think of like your top 3 financial goals. And the next step is, why do you want it? So if your goal is to purchase a home, why do you want that home? Like really feel why you want it. I want a home because I want my children in a safer neighborhood. And we kind of talked about this in our first session, which was live, so it wasn't recorded. But now we're on Zoom and they'll be recorded, so that's great. But really think about your why, because that'll anchor you. So when you start working on your spending plan and it's frustrating because you have to say no to going out to girls' night, and you're like, I really wanted to go to girls' night. You can go back and look at your goals, but then really look at that why. So really that why, make sure it means something to you. And then you can go back and look, and that oftentimes, at least for me, it was able to anchor me and be like, okay, you know what? I will see the girls in a couple months, or once I hit a certain savings goal, because I know what my bigger vision is. And so, take a few minutes to write that out. And you can, like I say, you can always come back to it to at least have your starting point. And then, now this is going to require us to get a little bit honest with ourselves, is identify any of your current financial situations, habits, or behaviors that are actually affecting you achieving that goal. And when you think about this, when you write these out, this is not coming from an energy of judging, of you should be doing this. None of that. This is just coming from a space of, factually, what are some things that I'm doing that I know is not supporting me in purchasing my home, in paying off my car, in saving $1,000, in whatever, in improving my credit? What are some things that you're doing? So maybe it's I eat out too much. Write that down. Or Maybe some of the behaviors I have because I don't turn my checking account. Whatever, but again, it's just coming from a place of just being factual, non-judgmental. And this is where it comes in about being compassionate to yourself. It's like, you don't need anyone to tell you what you're doing that isn't probably supporting you in your habits. You already know. We know. But we can speak to ourselves and accept something about ourselves without it being negative and nasty, because that doesn't support you getting to your end goal. So just being really mindful of how we talk to ourselves, even when we aren't where we want to be. Just be mindful. We can have, like I said, just hold yourself compassion. Pretend you're talking to a 2-year-old. You're going to be compassionate and sweet. So our first step before we even get into crafting a plan is just to identify where is it that you want to go. And then by identifying your current behaviors, you're now identifying where are you currently at. And so now, are y'all ready? Are y'all ready to get into the meat and potatoes of a spending plan? Okay, I see some yeses. So perfect. So first, we need to understand our income and expenses. So this is perfect. Last month we talked about, and we were able to see where your money is going. So if you were here last month, you'll have access to the same budget worksheet. And so what I want to do today is actually talk a little bit more in depth about your type of expenses, because this is super important when we're beginning to craft your plan. Is we can start identifying what needs to stay, what needs to go. And so the income bucket, I don't really separate it out. It's income. But when you're writing out your budget worksheet, and you don't have to use this one if you can also use their electronic apps. I like to write things out. And so this is why I like to use just a handwritten document, but feel free, you can use this in Excel or app as well. But write out your income, but then you do want to identify the source, right? So you want to be able to see is the bulk of your income coming from your W-2 job? Do you have child support income? If you have a business on the side, dividend, interest income, you do want to at least break out your income in the category so you can quickly see. And this is by the month. I think it's easier to just summarize everything by the month. But then I want to give you a breakdown of the different types of expenses. I break my expenses out into 3 categories: essential fixed expenses, essential variable expenses, and discretionary. So with essential fixed, that just means they are absolutely necessary. Like, for instance, your car, your car, you're going to need a car. So if you have a car note to get around, that will be essential. And fixed means the monthly payment stays the same. So your car note, that's going to stay the same. Your mortgage or your rent, typically that's going to stay the same. So you can bet every month what the amount's going to be. So that's essential and fixed. You have to have shelter. You have to have a form of transportation, and you know exactly what it's going to cost every month. So those types of expenses that don't change. Now, essential variable, those are things you absolutely need, but they may vary every month. So that will look like your groceries, utilities, that may vary month to month. And then discretionary are things that, yeah, you don't need them, but they're nice if you have. So you need to eat, but you don't need to go to a restaurant to eat. So dining out at a restaurant, that would be considered discretionary because it doesn't have to be there. You just need food. It doesn't have to be restaurant food per se. And the reason it's great to break these out is you can start to identify where is it that you have control versus where you may not have as much flexibility. So if it's essential and fixed, you don't really have very much control in changing the fixed cost by how much you use it. So it doesn't matter if you sleep in your home one night a month or 31 days in a month. It's fixed. You can't change it unless you actually change where you're living or what you're doing. You actually change the type of the expense. Whereas with variable costs, with utilities, in theory, you could reduce that if you're not utilizing it as much. Groceries, you could play around with your grocery tab a little bit more. So then that's just, it identifies how much flexibility you have. And then discretionary, that's when you can really see what's going on. And it's also, I also like to see this because with discretionary expenses, when you start looking at your spending plan, if you start seeing that, oh, wow, all of my essential expenses are covered, it's my discretionary expenses that's eating up the majority of my income. You can quickly see that as it's broken out in its categories, and you can quickly see it. And so that's why I also like to break this out, because it also can start helping you to monitor if there are certain habits that you're seeing on a monthly basis. It can help you see that. And so now this is something you'll have to do on your own. We won't have time in here today, but you would literally go through and map out what you feel that you spend would budget for each month, just to see what's in the categories. And so with this worksheet, what I love about this is then you would total your numbers, and then here at the bottom you would total your income and then your expenses. And then here is where you'll see your total savings or potential. If it ends up being negative, that's how much you won't have left at the end of the month. But you can actually start seeing, do you have a deficit or a surplus at the end of the month? And so that'll be helpful in identifying, okay, maybe you have some extra money that can then go to savings. Maybe that's where you can start using that extra money to pay down debt. And any questions so far on categorizing your expenses and income?
Yeah, can you go into again the essential variable versus discretionary? Like would like laundry soap and things like that, like what would obviously probably variable? I'm not sure.
Yes. So yes, you have to wash your clothes. So these are things that you have, so basically that you have to do. Washing clothes, that would be essential. Diapers, if you have children that need diapers, you have to have diapers. But hey, you don't necessarily have to buy Huggies. You could buy a store brand. And so, but basically it's anything that's essential for you to live. And you definitely need diapers with children, types of things. Discretionary are things that you, is it a want or need type of thing? Like if it's something that you want, but it's not something that you necessarily need, that's more discretionary. A vacation you don't need a vacation. You want a vacation. You don't need to go to a restaurant. You want to. You don't. It's like, is it a need or a want can kind of typically helps you identify if it is discretionary or essential. Like you need to eat. Typically, like discretionary examples are like entertainment, video games, streaming, cable. Now I would say like internet, I almost feel internet is almost essential. I would say in this day and age, because your children need it for school, you need it for work. But I mean, you could go to the library, but cable is definitely that would be discretionary. You don't need to have to HBO and Netflix and all that type of stuff. So looking to see, do I really need this, or is this more so a want? And if you have like specific examples, feel free to let me know, and we can like talk it out. But it ultimately falls down to, do you need this, like to actually basically survive comfortably type of thing, if it's essential.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And so once you've identified like your actual expenses and income, this is when we'll go into picking an actual budget that works for you. So I think it's really important. I am all about, first of all, personal finance is personal. And so there's not a one size fit all. So today you will not learn the best budget. because I'm going to tell you it depends. It depends on step one, what are some of your goals and what are your struggles? And you'll see when I describe the different types of budget, and there are multiple types of ways to budget your money. But I want you to make sure whichever one you pick is truly coming from a place of this works for you, and you're the only person that can really determine that. So in the next step, we look at pick an actual budget that's going to work for you. And so I'll talk about 4 budgets, and I'll share the one that I use, and I'll share why in just a moment. But the first one I'll go over is, it's called a 50-30-20. You may also see like a 80-10-10, but basically you're allocating your income to cover different buckets of expenses. And so 50% would go to the things that you need: shelter, car, food, things like that. 30% will go to things that you want. And then 20% will go to savings or debt. And so this is ideal for the person, you want to have flexibility. You want to be able to pay down debt or save to cover future costs, but then also live for today. So this is my favorite, because I think if you only focus on just paying down debt, getting debt free, and you're just like limiting yourself, not enjoying anything, first of all, I think that'd be like pretty miserable. Next, you don't know if you're going to be here tomorrow. We are not promised tomorrow whatsoever. And so I'm very hesitant to have someone be very restrictive and always paying down, then like just being ultra focused on paying down debt and eliminating all fun. And then something happens and they haven't enjoyed anything in life, or they're completely miserable every day of their life. I just don't think that that's healthy. I think we need to live for today, but prepare for tomorrow is my motto with that. So this type of method would work because you're covering your essentials. And then you're automatically allocating things to things that you want, and then you're also allocating opportunities to save. Another method is the envelope system. And with that, you actually set limits. So after you've identified your potential spending, you would then put, so if you say $300 for groceries in a month, you put that $300 in an envelope, and then once that money is gone, you're finished for the month. Now, this is really good for someone who struggles with overspending, or you want to stay out of debt. So being really setting an amount, and this requires discipline, but setting an amount and saying, I am not spending not a penny more than what's in this envelope. Now, another method in doing this, because carrying around cash is not insured, and it can be unsafe. So another method that people will do is especially if your bank offers multiple free accounts, they'll set up multiple accounts and have debit cards that are linked to the account. So maybe you have a grocery account, maybe you have a utilities account or a vehicle account, and then whatever amount you've allocated, you would transfer from your main account into those individual accounts, and then just use a debit card to pay for those types of expenses. Or perhaps they'll have a credit card and then just pay that off at the end of the month. So that's a workaround, because I don't like putting cash in an envelope. Again, cash is not insured. And then zero-based budgeting method, that takes into consideration your monthly income, and then you allocate it down to the penny of where that money is going. And so this is for someone who, like you tend to be an overspender, and you want to monitor every penny very closely. This will work well for you. This will help you in seeing exactly where every single dollar is going, so you're less apt to actually overspend. And then the last method is pay yourself first. And that's basically where you identify what your savings goal is, or what maybe what your debt payment goal is, and you allocate money to that first, and then you allow everything else to go to paying your bills. And this is really good if you have a savings goal and you tend to pay all your bills first, and then you find, oh my gosh, I have nothing left. This will help you save faster, because you're saying, no, I'm taking my goals into consideration first, and then everything else I'll figure out. Okay, one of my struggles is determining which type of budget to choose. I've done all four in some capacity. And we can talk about what some of your struggles are. And then the other thing is that sometimes it's a combo. You may have to do a combo, and that's okay too, right? And figuring out what works best for you. And so that's why if you start with what your goal is. So if your goal is, I struggle with saving, I would look to like the 50-30-20 or the pay yourself first, because then you can start saying, no matter what, I'm going to save a certain amount. And so what that can do is you start getting creative when it's like, okay, well, how do I make extra money? If I realize, because sometimes it's just, the reality is there's just not enough money. You're like, well, where am I going to get the money to save? We start getting creative. So maybe you can start looking at your expenses and minimizing that. But I think a lot of times we have to make more money. Not illegally. I'm not saying make money illegally, but you get to the place where you're like, okay, we're creative beings. We really, really are. So maybe if you like to cook, maybe you can ask a few friends, hey, how would you feel about me meal prepping for you? It'll be $50 a week or something like that. If you get 6 people that would like for you to meal prep, I mean, they're buying the groceries and you're paying $50 a week, it could be even more. $100 a week, you get 6 people, that's $600 a week. They bought the groceries, you just prepared it for them. $600 a week times 4 in a month, that's $2,400 an extra a month. If that's something that you like to do, and maybe you're doing it anyway. Especially when you have children, if there are things that you're doing with your children anyway, and it's like you're willing to say, oh, well, hey, I can babysit a couple nights a week for you. I have children anyhow. It'll be an extra $50, $100 a week. There are so many tasks that maybe you do or you enjoy doing that someone else, it makes them want to throw up. And if you can offer it to them, if you're able to offer them a solution, they will gladly pay for it. Just going to check the chat. Can these be used aggressively, like use one? Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. You can definitely start with one method and then switch to another one as your goals change, as your situation change. Because if you tend to be an overspender, but you've gone through work and you're like, you know what? I've identified what triggers my overspending. I don't really overspend anymore. I'm ready to start aggressively saving. You can switch from a envelope system to like pay yourself first, or zero base, or to the like a 50-30-20. Absolutely. Goal is to just cover basic bills so I can survive, then saving so I can create a cushion. So to cover your basic bills, I would maybe do a percentage method. And so what you can do is you can look at, identify your basic expenses, and then how much of your income does it take? And so if we go back and look at this one, so if you map out your income and then all your basic expenses, and then see what's left over. So see what you have left. And if you find that you have something left, then you can start, and you can even start doing that. You can identify what the percentage of that is. So if your expenses are 80% of your income, maybe you can't save 30 or 20 into savings, but now you know, okay, at least 10% I'm going to commit to put into my needs or saving. But getting an idea of how much we really have to identify how much do we have left? How much do you have left over after you've identified your income and expenses? But no, those are really good. So you can absolutely, and I say play around with, start and see, and you can adjust. Because even with that 50-30-20, perhaps your necessities is more than 50%, especially with the cost of housing. Housing is crazy. So a lot of times your necessities, the percentage is a little bit higher. This is like a best case scenario, but it could be whatever your percentage you decide. So maybe it's, well, no, 80% has to go to necessities, but you'll only be able to see that once you've actually like mapped out your expenses and your income. So you can definitely change the percentage as well. But I encourage you to, if you can, always put something in there for fun, even if it's 5%. If that means going out every week or every other week to your favorite restaurant or to get some ice cream, get something that is bringing some level of joy in your life. Being just totally restrictive, I don't think is healthy. Okay, so 68. Well, that's really good. So, I mean, I would round that up. You've got 70. So now you have 30% that you can play with, and you can decide if it's paying off debt or if you want to use that to do a savings goal. And now this is where it comes in, like, what are your goals? What are your other goals? Because if your goal is, okay, I want to purchase a house, now you can start getting numbers for, well, how much do you need to purchase a house? And you can start looking at, out of that 30%, how much would you like to start saving to go towards your purchase? Something like that. So then you can actually start identifying, where does this extra money need to go, essentially. Mapping out, what debts do you have? Okay, is it a savings, or is it am I paying down credit card debt or whatever debt with this extra 30%? So good, that's really good. So we've identified the types of budgets, and depending on, again, what your struggles are. So consider, are you struggling with overspending or accumulating debt? You want to then find a way, and then is your goal to pay off the debt? Then you want to make sure you're using a method that you've been able to easily identify and allocate a portion to paying off your debt. If it's to aggressively save, if you like, oh, I have all my essential expenses covered, I want to aggressively save, or you're someone who you tend to overspend, because this happens as well. You're making the money, but you tend to overspend and not save. Pay yourself first is really helpful, because you automatically are saving right away out of the bat. So, if you have a W-2 job, an easy way to do that is you can ask them to split your direct deposit into multiple deposits. So you can actually request, hey, right away, because that is actually what helped me save my $24,000 in a year. I said, right away, $1,000 goes to an account that I don't see. I don't see it. I asked them to transfer it to a totally separate account that I did not see. Now, I had already done the math, and so my paycheck less than $1,000 was going to cover my expenses for that part of the month. And so I was fine. But then I didn't see it, because sometimes it takes a lot of discipline to know money is in your account and not spend it. So sometimes it's like out of sight, out of mind. So looking at also, now this is a little bit off topic, but high yield savings accounts that are not like attached to your actual bank account where you can just quickly transfer. I highly recommend that. Put it in there so you can't really see it. Also, the interest rates are higher. I think the interest rate's like 4.5% or something right now I'm making on money in a high yield savings account. But sometimes just put it away so you don't see it. And so now that you've identified, like, now you get to pick, right? You get to pick which budget you think would work for you. And sometimes it is trial and error. Play around and try different ones. Like I would do try for like a couple months. And if you're like, oh, this isn't working for me, switch it up. No, not all banks offer it. I like Ally. I will send in the follow-up email that they send, but I like Ally, Discover, American Express. I stick with big names, and yeah, high yield savings is the way to go to save for sure. But I'll put some resources in the follow-up email. So now that we've revisited our goals, we know our why, we know what we're working towards. Then we've actually went through and we looked at our numbers. We see what we expect we're going to spend for the month. And so then we created a plan to actually pick which budget we're going to try to work on. And now we're working, we're doing our budget. Now we have to monitor and adjust. Oh, let's see, just a second here. SoFi has one, but sometimes just watch watch the language of them and make sure that they won't try and like it's a promotional rate. And then, because sometimes some banks will be it's promotional rate and then they'll drop your rate. Make sure it's like pretty consistent. But yes, I've seen SoFi, and also watch out for like the minimum deposits. I really only deal with ones where it's like I can start with as little as $1 if I want, and then monitor which balances that you have to keep. But now we're going to monitor and adjust. So my recommendation is have a weekly money date night. And in the workbook, it's super simple. It's not nothing fancy, but it will give you everything that you need. And you want to plan ahead. You want to make sure that you're planning in advance. So put it on your calendar. It's like a date night with your sweetie pie. Put it on the calendar. And then focus on one or two topics. Don't try and change the world in the night. So focus on one or two topics. So maybe I'm just going to monitor to see how I did with tracking my budget this month. Or maybe it's, I haven't tracked in a while. I'm going to sit down and just summarize my activity. I'm going to maybe just look at my credit report, my debt for the night. So pick one or two topics and then set the amount of time that you're going to do it. Is it 30 minutes? Is it an hour? And set your specific time, get it on the calendar, and then just kind of reflect on what went well. So you know what your goals are. You know what you're specifically working on. So if you're working on, you know what, I don't want to use my credit card this month. And sometimes what I've seen people do is they do like no spend days. So they say 5 days out of the month, I'm not spending any money. So that means, because I'm guilty of this, I would go to the grocery store, get a car full of groceries, and then stop and get fast food. Why? I have groceries in the car. I can cook when I get home. You have a house full of groceries. So as part of my no spend days is I am not allowed to eat out. I don't care if all I have is a pack of noodles at home. That is what I have to stick to on my no spend days. So sometimes that can also help, like adding games and fun to your life when you're trying to like stick to something new. That can also help. And when you reflect, again, what do I say? It's a compassionate voice. Okay, what went well? Oh, okay, so I ate out 20 out of 30 days this month. Okay, that probably they're not what I wanted to do. What can I do different next time? But also identify, did something happen when you're looking back over that in that week, or if you're doing it monthly, what happened? What was going on that caused you not to stick to your plan? That's also what reflecting is, because what you can do is once you become aware of like, oh, okay, this may be a trigger for me, especially for women, if you're still, getting your monthly cycle, you may find that there's a week in the month where your spending is out of control. But if oh, this happens every time my cycle comes on, you can start putting mechanisms in place to help you with that. And then at the end of it, schedule your next one. So just treat this like a relationship. No one is staying in a relationship if they don't see their partner. Your money is your partner. And so making sure that you're checking in with them at least weekly. So get on the calendar for the next time. And then some other areas that you can use for accountability. Journaling is absolutely amazing. If that's not something you do, I highly recommend it. Money is emotionally charged. So when you're, even if you, for a month, you just journal how you're feeling, and you can probably even see sometimes how that correlates with your spending. So if you find that, oh gosh, certain times a month I'm sad, or certain parts of the year I'm really sad, and that's when Amazon is at my door every other week, start paying attention to it so you can just start like getting in front of it. Using your calendar. So if one of your issues, sometimes not paying things on time it causes late fees and everything. Use your calendar and put alerts in your calendar. A lot of bank accounts have where if you have credit card payments due, they can alert you when it's coming up. They can also alert you if your balance is getting to a certain level. Sign up for those alerts. The other thing is what I do with my credit cards is I sign up for the minimum payment. If nothing else, they'll get their minimum payment. So that way I don't get hit with the late fee. So even if you can't pay it all and you end up paying interest, no problem. You've at least covered that minimum payment. So that way you do not get hit with the late fee. So utilize the calendar, whether it's your personal calendar or linked with the bank or credit card. And then apps like Mint, Google, Excel, those are helpful with tracking. Tap into community resources. You all are here because the Women's Resource Center is hosting these events. So tap into and see if there's support out there, tons of non-for-profits. And then there sometimes you have paid mentorship or coaching that also may be something if you're like, you know what, I need just some additional help. They have resources out there. And then pay attention to your sabotage, because you know you're getting information, but sometimes life happens. And so you can identify what they are. Do you have spending triggers? Are there certain people who come into your life and you're like, oh my gosh, they just drained every ounce of positivity from me. I have to go shopping now. Start paying attention to that. And so sometimes that may look like, well, this person can't be in my presence, or okay, at this point, I know I have to put away the cards, or, you know, figure out what it is. Or if you can plan in advance, phone a friend. If you have a friend that's on this journey with you, say, oh my gosh, I'm meeting with this person. Be on standby. I'm calling you after because I can't go to the store. You can start preparing. Other like type of triggers are, reward spending. You do something exciting, you want to reward yourself, and that's great. But go back and think about your goals and why. And if it's not in alignment and it's going to take you too far off your goal, think of a different way. There's other ways that you can celebrate without necessarily spending right away. The sale. So watch out for that. You think you're getting a sale, so you go and spend a lot, and it's just like, ask yourself, do I need this, or am I just buying this because it's BOGO? BOGO gets me every time. And you look in the pantry and you're like, well, that's not even something I eat. That it was the BOGO. So just be mindful of that and keep your receipts. Do not be ashamed to return something. If you can return it, oh, you know what? I didn't need this. Take it back. Take it back. And then emotional spending, celebration spending. We all want to celebrate, especially birthday with children. We want to, give the kids everything. They don't need a lot. A lot of times they just want us in our time. And if they do want too much, we can learn to practice telling them no, we're not doing that. We can do this. So just being mindful of that and identifying, is that something that is something you do, and you can plan ahead, plan something different, plan something maybe less elaborate, or save for it, things like that. Another thing is, watch out when you're working, or if you're a business owner, undervaluing and being underpaid is a real thing. If you are, working a job and you realize, man, I'm really not being paid what I should be, there are ways you can perhaps ask for a raise. But before you go in there, what I would do is just track what you've been doing for the company, how you've been impacting and things like that. Track your wins. So when you go in, you can actually present and say, hey, I'm doing these things. This is what it has done for the company. And request your raise, especially when it's your annual review and things like that. Brag on yourself. And then another item that sabotages your spending plan / your budget is just not reviewing it. There's no point in having a plan if we're not checking in and seeing how we're doing. So you want to make sure that you are reviewing it. I would say weekly at a minimum. If you can look at your money every day, that's even better. But at least weekly is going to be super, super important for you. And then, sorry. I didn't realize how much I had to talk without it. But, and so just to reiterate in summary, when you're crafting your spending plan, you want to really start with your goals in mind. You have to know where you're going. And then identify where you're currently at. So you can start seeing which habits are coming up for you. And so creating a plan to actually support you in getting better habits, because it doesn't matter about your plan if you have habits that are going to sabotage, and then we're not dealing with the habits. Understand your income and expenses. We have to know what you're actually spending out before you can really craft a plan. And then make sure that you're doing a plan that works for you and makes sense for your long-term goals. And then we always just want to monitor and adjust. And there were a couple questions of being debt-free versus credit card. I kind of touched on that. I think you can responsibly use credit cards, and I love credit cards for a couple reasons. One, I don't like using my debit card because if someone gets a hold of my debit card, they have access to cash in my bank account. And so, yes, you can eventually get that money back, but now that cash is gone. And if I need to pay someone else with actual cash, they don't care if my account has been stolen or something like that. They don't care. They still want their money. So I do like credit card because it's not tied to my actual cash. But this needs to be if you can responsibly use credit cards. If you cannot, I would say then don't get yourself in trouble. But I also like it because you can earn money. I probably make an extra $2,500 a year because of credit card points. And so you now are making money on money that you would use anyways. And so that's why I like credit cards. Being debt-free does have power though, because when you don't have extra payments to make, it does allow a certain level of freedom, and you can there's just more flexibility when you don't have debt. But I would not say being debt free to the point of depriving is the way to go, just for me personally. But then you also identify what your nervous system allows. But I think if there's a way to have balance. Tips for budgeting with kids is, kids don't need as much as we think they do sometimes. And I don't know what you may have to tell me like what your biggest struggle is with budgeting with kids. But sometimes we have to get creative, and also make sure that we're seeking support if it's available. And then leveraging and seeing if there are other ways to sometimes increase your income. I know just for me personally, when I had my little one, I had to get sometimes creative with how I worked, when I worked, and then just pursuing things that were going to bring in additional income for me. And then I also had to pull back. I tend to spoil my oldest. And so I would lavish parties that when I look back, I was like, she does not even remember this. Okay, look, Capital One, 4.3%, and creating a future savings for them. You can actually decide how much you would like to save for them. So if it's maybe 5%, and it doesn't, the thing about saving for children, which is super cool, is they have time on their side. And so even if just saving a little bit for them, because they have so much time for it to grow, is helpful. So maybe it's $20 or $50 if you have extra a month, or if there's something that you don't need. I always loved, like, what's one thing, like once you write out all your money, if you realize, man, I spent an extra $100 going to Starbucks, I don't need that. You could like replace something that you don't necessarily need, and then you can earmark that, say, okay, this extra $100 that I would have spent on Starbucks that wasn't hurting me, now this is going to go to saving for the kids' college, or just them just having a nest egg in the future, if that's something that is really on your heart. That's beautiful. How would you begin to save, invest any extras without losing housing subsidy? So that can be a little bit tricky, because there is a certain threshold that you can't go over. Identify what that number is, because I will say I don't know enough about the different thresholds, but you can look at it like this. You don't want to I don't want to use the word handicap. You don't want to limit yourself to stay at a certain level to not get support, as opposed to saying, okay, well, how do I make sure that I'm getting the money that I need to where I'm not on the housing subsidy, to where that doesn't even affect me. But make sure that you're strategic about when you increase the income, so that way you don't get off the subsidy, but then you can't maintain it. So I guess the simpler way to say that is, don't focus on increasing your income so much that's not sustainable, to where it kicks you off your subsidy, and now you're off your subsidy, and then you don't have this extra income either. So like for myself, when I was on Section 8, my income didn't go up until I had finished college, and then I got like a $20,000 pay increase, and so then I was no longer on the subsidy, but my income was pretty guaranteed, and I knew that after having my degree and having this experience, I would never make less than that. So I wasn't going to need it. But if it's the issue of, because with that subsidy, once you start making over a certain threshold, they don't care, then you're off. So just be definitely mindful of that. Oh, okay. Okay, yeah. That's what happens. Like the more you make when you're on subsidy, the more it gets increased until one point that you're off. You're completely off. One way is depending on with your job. If your rent's gonna go up anyways, one thing you can do is say, you know what, I'm putting this money into a retirement account. And if you put it in a retirement account, and then you may have to correct me, but if you put it in a retirement account, then it doesn't show as actually earned income, and now you're actually saving for your future. So that's one workaround. If they're looking at your net pay. Now, if they're looking at your gross pay, it won't matter. But if they're looking at your take home, a workaround is putting that into a retirement account if you have it at work. Oh, okay, yeah. So congratulations. Oh, this is only going to me. This is maybe why y'all think, what about? But yes, no. Are there any, our next workshop will be August 23rd. Brent, you may have to refresh my memory on the topic for August.
Yes. I wanted to also ask a question here. But let me look. And I actually have our next session on August 30th. And the topic is cash is king, but credit is power when used responsibly. And that's the next topic. And then Alex, you and I, if there's a discrepancy in the date, we'll get together and I'll notify all of the recipients or the registrants of the program. But I wanted to ask, when it comes to creating, or when it comes to understanding your income and expenses, like what sort of historical time period should you look at? Like the last month, the last 3 months? What's best to get an idea of income and expenses?
Well, sure, that's a good question. I usually look at the last 2 months, and the only asterisk I would say is if you have expenses that you pay every 6 months or once a year, kind of take that into consideration. So I know I pay my car insurance every 6 months, just because I like to save, so I have to keep that in mind when I'm doing my monthly budgets. But if you look back, typically the last couple of months, you can usually get a gauge for what's going on. But take in consideration if it was the holiday. So if it's like December and you're purchasing Christmas gifts, you'll know, oh, I'll probably spend more money then. So be mindful of things like that if you know, but usually the last 2 months will be good.
Perfect. Thank you.
And then someone asked about an HSA, medical savings account. I love those. Those are triple tax free, which they can be, because when you put money into the account, it's tax deductible. When you take it out, if you use it for medical expenses, it's tax free, and then the earnings grow tax free. So we love an HSA. An FSA is a little bit different, but yes, if you have an HSA and it works for you, the only thing is that you have to have like a high deductible account. And so depending on like how expensive it may be, it may or may not work in your favor. But those are definitely options, especially if you find that you have medical expenses. Those are a great way to save and reduce your taxable income, but then also pay for medical. Should you invest the money for your children's savings? I think investing is always a great option depending on what your risk tolerance is. If nothing else, putting it in a savings account, but also investing in the stock market and working with, I'm not an investment person, but working with someone, but they're like mutual funds and things like that, that over time, it's just going to grow. A lot of wealth is built via home ownership and the stock market. So when you look at people who are very wealthy and in retirement, they've invested in their home and the stock market. So yes, I would definitely, I always encourage getting with like a financial advisor to see what your options are. Any other questions? Well, perfect. I hope that as you all start on your spending plans, you'll have to let me know. I put my social media contact in there, and it's also in the workbook. So you'll definitely have to let me know how it's going. Because yeah. Oh, you're so welcome. Spending, budgeting and spending plans. Yeah, I have a love-hate relationship with them, and I do this for a living. But I will tell you when I'm following one, I my goals, I hit my goals so much quicker, and it's a lot less painful. Oh, you're so welcome. I'm so glad to hear that. Good, good, good. Well, you all know where to find me, and I will see you next month. I will see you next month.
There we go. And we'll confirm the date for everyone as a reminder. You'll always get a reminder email a day or two before the actual workshop.
All right. Perfect. Well, I'll see y'all next time. Bye.
Bye, everyone.